My paper is entitled Smoldering Memories and Burning Questions: The Politics of Remembering Sally Bassett and Slavery in the British Colony of Bermuda. Who was Sally Bassett? On June 5th, 1730, in the British colony of Bermuda, 68-year-old Sally Bassett was convicted of attempting to kill by poison the masters of her granddaughter. The ingredients that she used were made from what we call white toad and manicold root, and we'll get back to that later on in the presentation. The court found that Bassett was moved and seduced by the instigation of the devil, and the Chief Justice declared, "It is the judgment and sentence of this court that you, Sarah Bassett, be conveyed to the place of execution, where a pile of wood is to be made and provided, and you are there to be fastened to a sufficient stake, and there to be burnt with fire until your body be dead, and the Lord have mercy on your soul." So in essence, Sally Bassett was burned alive for attempting to poison the masters of her granddaughter. She never admitted to the offense. The court found it to be worth £1, 4 shillings and 6 pence at the time of the execution. And the place where she was burned, if we fast forward to 2011, is right at the entrance to the capital of Bermuda, Hamilton City. And it's really interesting to see how a society that has been constructed under an economics of tourism has served to also erase the memory of slavery. And when those memories do remain, they've been transformed into images that suit Bermuda's contemporary political situation. We are talking about a society that is still a British colony, that has a population demographics of approximately 60% black, 40% white, and for much of Bermuda's history, history in and of itself has been utilized to legitimize colonialism and has been predicated on the basis of what we call the master narratives, or the narrative of Bermuda's oligarchy, which in the Bermuda context has been typically called the 40 Thieves. However, in 2009, Bermuda's first black government, since the beginning of party politics in the island in 1963, the first black government gets elected in 1998, which is quite striking in a majority black country, decided to enact this monument to Sally Bassett, which we're looking at right now. It immediately created a host of controversial debates that were very racially polarized. The first issue was the site of the monument. The first place that the government decided was right in Bermuda City Hall. City Hall has been historically the seat of Bermuda's oligarchy in Hamilton City. They denied the government's request. The excuses used were there weren't any space on the ground, they had other projects going on. They just gave a ton of excuses, and this very public debate emerged between was this racially motivated. They finally decided to place the statue right in the front of the cabinet office where it lies now. And immediately, it's similar to the situation in Charleston. Majority whites decried this construction. They said, Sally Bassett is a criminal. How can you have a monument to a criminal? She tried to kill folks. Black folks said, no, she is a freedom fighter, and she should be given credence as a freedom fighter. She fought to abolish slavery. What was very interesting about this was during the unveiling of the monument, Bermuda's British governor, in a speech, actually compared the monument to one to Robert E. Lee, and also a monument to a bow of victory in South Africa, a bow of victory over a major war against the Zulus. And many black people found this to be an affront. How could you compare Sally Bassett to Robert E. Lee? Someone who fought against slavery and someone who fought to defend it. And also, how could a colonial governor compare Sally Bassett to a process of colonialism at the same time? Other comments made by whites were that, whites were being demonized to have this thing created. This was just going to stir up trouble, so to speak. And if I could just read one quote. Because if you look at this, the image, the sculptor, who happened to be black, decided to also show Sally Bassett as being pregnant with freedom. So it was a metaphor to show some agency to a black woman who, even though she died, the spirit of resistance she gave birth to, so it continued. Some white commentators felt that this was, in essence, I quote, a lie. They're telling lies. This is the most blatant form of white demonization in the nation. Showing any black person breaking through the change would have got the point across. So now Sally Bassett is not really important. Could have showed any person this would have done the job. But the part that bothers me the most, quote, is that Miss Bassett is portrayed as being pregnant with the birth of hope. And white people killed her and her baby. Good Lord, how do you explain that to your kids? White people must have surely been demons to have burnt a pregnant woman at the stake. What does this really reflect? It reflects a context in which history in Bermuda, in this colonial context, is typically been utilized to assuage white guilt about slavery. And also this myth of a benign institution. If you think of Bermuda, you think of tourism, you think of maybe palm trees, you think of beaches, you think of a very peaceful kind of society. Connected with that is the master narrative of slavery. Someone must be thirsty. The narrative of slavery, that blacks enslaved in Bermuda, but everything is okay. There's no need to resist. And that's the point. Sally Bassett is like the proverbial elephant in the room in terms of such perception. The retelling, telling, and imagining and memorializing the Bassett story helps to dismantle this fictitious myth. Sally Bassett also challenges stereotypes of black women. She's not a Jezebel. She's a domestic, but she's certainly not, the proverbial house slave, because she tries to poison her masters. She's 68 years old. She's born in Bermuda. She's a mulatto. But this whole image, her issue of the proximity to one's enslaver means there's some type of acquiescence on the enslaved. She destroys and dismantles that myth, much like the narrative of Mary Prince does as well, who was an enslaved black woman in Bermuda, who writes the first narrative in English by a black woman in the Americas about her experience of slavery in the island. What this whole incident also reflects is that the process of memorializing slavery in Bermuda is politically charged, particularly in a colonial society which has historically criminalized black protests, but now features a black government committed to the national promotion of Bermuda's diverse heritage. In fact, public and academic representations of slavery are often contested spaces of intellectual and cultural warfare, and raise questions as to who has the power to define the narrative of slavery, and how those definitions reflect current issues of race, racism, and colonialism. This is especially significant given the highly conceptual and physical visibility of Bassett's monument. As stated, it's right in the, where she was burned is right in the center of Hamilton City. But the monument now is a project of cultural tourism along Bermuda's African diaspora heritage trail. In fact, this monument is seen as the most popular site for the trail in 2010. Ironically, Bermuda, across its entire landscape, it's full, literally littered with the sites of terror that have been relabeled and repackaged for tourism. So now auction blocks are, as you mentioned, parking lots. You have places in St. George's Harbor where there are stockades, and people go there and they take photos of these stockades. There's been discussion of slavery that takes place. Right where Sally Bassett was burned, ironically,